Well, good morning. Sorry, got a mud dance. I don't know why I started right there. Whoo! Today's gonna be a hot one. Like record-setting, heat advisory type of hot one. Yesterday was too, but I didn't hike yesterday. I sat in an air-conditioned hotel room, watched YouTube videos, and ate a ton of food. It was a good day. Today, we're gonna try to stay hydrated and walk 19 miles through this blistering heat. It's not bad yet. It's only a little after 8. I'm trying to get the hardest part of the day, which is a really big steep climb out of Bennington, just out of the way. If I can be done with this by 10, the rest of the day will be kind of cruisy. Taking a zero was a good idea. I got my, I don't know why I find this funny to say right now, after talking about the insane heat that I'm walking through, but I got my cold weather gear back from my mom. Thank you so much for that, by the way, Mom. Not gonna need it for a few days, obviously, but it is making my pack heavier, which is unfortunate. Hopefully, the heat will have dried some of this mud up and made the trail not too bad today. So, we'll see. Well, here I am coming to you from the top of Glastonbury Mountain. Glastonbury? I don't know, something along those lines. Up at 3,800 feet. Not quite a 4,000 footer, but we're up here. And I'll tell you what, I was thinking this morning about how maybe being up in the mountains was keeping the temperature down, because it was really nice all morning. But holy cow, is it hot now. I just got done with lunch. Woo! Good thing is, I just have 9 downhill miles to go to camp. And not like steep downhill, like nice, cruisy, nice, gradual downhill. So it should be an easy afternoon. It's just hot and buggy, but not mosquito-y, which is a different kind of annoying. Black flies and gnats, but not mosquitoes. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. Mud continues to be a thing, but you know, it's certainly not as bad as it could be. I just really hope the whole state's not like that. Because even this mountain peak here that I just went across, there was no view. There was just a fire tower that you're not even allowed to climb. So it was just, I don't know, there seems to be no reward for the mud yet, outside of getting through this date. That has to change. I believe it will. I gotta say, the Green Mountains are aptly named. Well, good morning. It's gonna be another sweaty one today. It is like 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm already halfway soaked. Unfortunately, I didn't really get anything to show yesterday, except this, just mud. Yeah, mud, bugs, and trees is all I saw yesterday. Hopefully, by the way, you want to see what the mud looks like? It's just that, just gross. Hopefully we'll get a view today. We're going up Stratton Mountain, I believe it was called, which is a ski resort. people aren't going to be skiing through the forest, so hopefully that means we'll get a view of something other than trees and mud. Oy. After that, it's going to be just a cruisy rest of the day down to the shelter. Got another indoor shelter tonight. That's going to be kind of cool. And I believe that'll let me catch up to birdwatch and grouse. Don't know if I've mentioned those two yet. Another couple that we've been hiking around recently. But then that should allow the other two boys to catch up. We'll slow down a little bit. Get ready for the whites. But hopefully, we can find something in Vermont to enjoy before this date is over. Well, I had to climb a fire tower once I got here, but I finally get to see, nope, that's blurry and terrible. There we go. Vermont, other than the inside of the trees. And yeah, it's real pretty out there. If not for the fire tower, this would have been our view, which is nothing, as always. But that was cool. I got to actually see some mountains out in the distance. Probably saw Killington. This way. Now Stratton Mountain is even more unfortunate than Glastonbury, whatever yesterday's was. Stratton Mountain is 3,900 and something feet. Just so close to 4,000, but not quite there. Gotta wait for Killington. I just noticed that I passed the 3/4 of the way mark like an hour and a half ago. I don't think there was a sign, but I crossed it. 75% done. Whew. Good morning. Well, it is a lovely day. It feels like the Earth's fever finally broke overnight, because the last couple of days have been brutal. Today it's windy and cloudy, and I mean, it's supposed to rain this afternoon. That probably has something to do with it. But for right now, it is great to hike in. I did catch up with birdwatch and grouse. Safe Travels is about 10 miles back, or was last night. And roach, I think, took another 0. Just dealing with the personal stuff. Happens to the best of us. Today, I am doing 3 miles into the city of Manchester Center. I think that's what it's called. And resupplying. Probably gonna hang out. If I can find like a cafe or something to chill at, drink some coffee, and charge some electronics really quick, that would be great. And then I got 14 more miles. I think we're doing a total of 17 and change today, to another shelter. I don't know if I'm gonna make it there before the rain starts. So that's gonna be today's test. This resupply is supposed to be for 3 days, which will take us over Killington. Finally get to do our first 4,000 footer. And then into the town of Rutland, Virginia, or not Virginia, we're in Vermont. Home of the Yellow Deli, which is a home of a cult. So that'll be interesting. But we're all curious. We gotta see what it's all about. But that's days from now. For today, let's focus on enjoying the beautiful weather and not sweating uncontrollably. So I went into Manchester with the intention of resupplying, sitting in a cafe, drinking a cup of coffee, having something for breakfast, charging my electronics for an hour or so, and then getting back out on trail by 11 or 11:30. It is currently 2:30. Nope, it's now 3:30. Holy cow. It was 2:30 when I got back out here. The cafe didn't have any outlets. So when I finished my coffee and my breakfast, I walked over to the library where they had outlets. And then charging everything, for whatever reason, took just so much longer than I thought. But now it's done, and it should get me the couple of days I need. It started raining at like 1 o'clock, and I had a real long internal battle between just calling it for the day, getting a hostel, getting a shower, washing my disgustingly dirty shirt, and worrying about it tomorrow morning versus just getting back on trail and hiking. And I'm sure what you're thinking is, good for you. You won the battle. You're hiking. Not true. I lost horribly, but the hostel was full. As I told him, probably a blessing in disguise. I need to get some mileage. However, trying to do 15 miles after 2:30 p.m. puts me in a weird situation, because I mean, if I'm lucky, I'll get there at like 8 o'clock, which is pretty late. And it's supposed to rain tonight. And so the shelter is probably going to be very full. There's a shelter 10 miles in, but Far Out says it's got some pretty bad termites. There's a shelter 3 miles in, but that doesn't feel like I've hiked enough miles for the day. It's like a 5-mile day, 6-mile day, something like that. Gotta figure it out. The rain messed me all up. Electronics charging messed me all up. Everything just slowed me down today. Bird watching grouse are at the furthest shelter. Safe travels. I think is gonna bounce back out of town and be at the first shelter. And then I gotta figure out where I wanna be. Whew. Decision time. Almost pretty, but the clouds are blocking everything.
But I don't know which one it is.
From here?
It's maybe that one.
Well, good morning. I caved into my laziness and stopped at the ski lodge that was like 3 miles into the day. Well, 3 miles into the second half of the day, for a grand total of 5.8 miles hiked yesterday. Whew. Not great. Kind of sets me back quite a bit for the next couple of days and puts me in a really weird position, because at the end of this food carry, the last thing we do is we go over Killington, our first 4,000 footer. And plan was to be going over that tomorrow afternoon with a, you know, regular sized day, like a 15 or 16 mile day going over Killington. Unfortunately, I stopped 11 miles short yesterday. So I now have 48 miles to do until the next town, which means I can do 2 big 25-ish, 24-mile days. But I don't know if I want to do a 24-mile day that ends with going over Killington. There's a shelter right at the base of Killington before you go over it. It might be a good stop, leaving me only like 6 miles into town the next morning. So I don't really need food for that. So that might be the play. But I think birdwatch and grouse are still going into Rutland tomorrow, staying at the hostel. So that would put me, you know, a full day behind if I wanted to spend the night at the hostel. I mean, I can catch those too. I typically put in 4 to 5 more miles per day than they do. So not that big of a deal, just kind of annoying. Other problem that I didn't realize until this morning is that the first water source is 7 miles into the day. There was no water at the shelter last night, and so I am starting my day with a 7-mile stretch where I have half a liter of water. Not ideal. However, spider webs. It's still early. It's 6 a.m. Well, it's like 6:15 now. So it's not super hot. And it's not supposed to get super hot today. So I should be able to make my water stretch. I am thirsty though. So it's going to make for an uncomfortable morning. You see, this is the part of Vermont that I was excited for. This is just beautiful. I mean, yeah, where's this been? Look at views. Trail that's, I mean, it's rocky, but it's not muddy. That's all I care about. I'm gonna choose to believe that the worst of the mud is gone. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still muddy and has been all day. But it's not like the majority of the trail like it was before. Now it's just patches here and there. So much better. So this used to be a really pretty rock garden where people had placed stones in like various cool structures. But I guess a couple of years ago it got torn down because of leave no trace. I mean, it is definitely against the policies of leave no trace. So, unfortunate. Good morning. Today's going to be an interesting day. Well, an easy day, I guess. Yesterday's confusion led to today being very awkward, but in its awkwardness, I think it just leaves me with either an easy day or an extremely hard day. And I don't feel like doing the extremely hard day, especially with the rain that is supposed to be coming in here in the next hour or so. Noticed a very subtle but distinct difference in mileage numbers yesterday. I started the day 1 mile ahead of Save Travels. He didn't want to come to the shelter I was at the night before at the ski lodge, So he started at the shelter a mile behind that. What that led to was a very interesting distinction. See, I think we've all come to the same conclusion that the mileage you want to do every day is somewhere in the 17 to 22 miles a day range. Like, that's your good, healthy mileage. Anything less than that feels kind of meh. Anything more than that is a hard day. Because of the 1 mile difference in our starting yesterday, the first reasonable shelter that I showed up to was a shade under 16 miles. Or a shade over 16 miles, which is still not in that range. And I just felt like I hadn't done enough for the day. There was another shelter 6 miles past that for a nice 22 point something, which feels like a good day. Feels like a nice, normal, good, solid day. The difference with that is that Safe Travels hit that first shelter at 17 miles. So he felt like he had done a relatively accomplished day, and pushing on the next 6 miles would have been 23, which is a big kind of grindy push day. We also had no cell phone service all day long. And so I was unable to communicate to him that I was going to push on. And so I sent him a text a couple hours, or an hour after I left or so. I found a little spot with service. I sent him a text. I said, hey man, if you ever get service, this is where I'm going. And then when I got to the shelter, I checked, we had a little bit of service, and he'd sent me a text back that said, hey man, I'm going to stop at this shelter back here. All this to say, because of a 1 mile difference in the starting of our day, we ended up 6 miles apart at the end of the day, which is unfortunate. I am now 6 miles ahead of Safe Travels and 6 miles behind Grouse and Birdwatch, and 56 miles ahead of Roach. I hope he catches up, but that is unknown. Ooh, arm's getting sore. 1 sec. I'm back. So yeah, 6 miles ahead of one group, 6 miles behind the other group. Kind of in an awkward spot. Today, my options are do an easy 14, 15, something like that mile day to the base of Killington. Do 20 miles to the peak of Killington, where I guess there's a shelter there, but it's kind of in rough shape. And there's only like 2 tent spots. And the odds of me getting there in time to get one of those feels slim. Or 25 miles up and over Killington and into town today. Now, Grouse and Birdwatch are doing 19 miles up and over Killington today to get into town. That makes sense. 25 for me makes a lot less sense. 31 for Safe Travels, not going to happen. So I think the goal is for me to stop at this shelter at 15 miles, wait for Safe Travels to catch up, and then tomorrow he and I will do the 15 miles up and over Killington, or 10 miles, whatever it is. Easy day tomorrow too. Into town to resupply and so on. Get a shower, do laundry, be less disgusting. So that is my current plan. That was a lot of talking about my current plan. Whew. I am sticking with my thought that the mud is mostly behind us, even though literally right here in front of us. But there's been a lot less, so it's much better. Ugh. However, I think I need to probably use my hands for the next section of trail, so I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll be back later. So despite the fact that I'm going down extremely steep landscape right now, today has been awesome. The impending rain has kept the temperatures down quite well. I'm walking through just awesome pine forest. I was just on this big peak. It's just a, whoa, what was I doing there? It's just a really, really good day. And I thought every once in a while, since I've been griping about Vermont so much, I should get on here and talk about the good ones. As always, it's gonna be hard to show really how steep this is. But there's my next blaze.
Ooh. This little farmstead sells awesome ice cream cookies, insanely good chocolate milk, and little craft local sodas. Great place to stop in the middle of the day.
They also had cheese curds and sriracha peanuts, which sound really good. Hard to make it out, but that little peak on the left is Little Killington. And then up in the clouds is actual Killington. Almost there. (1,697 miles) and I finally slipped my foot into the water. Bummer. Good morning. Today's gonna be awesome. We're climbing over Killington right now. My day starts with a little over 2,000 foot climb. It's gonna be fun. Safe Travels caught up last night. However, pretty sure he's still asleep. It's 7:30, that's late, I'm walking. We're doing 11 miles to get into Rutland, and he can catch me there. Shower, laundry, town stuff. This is the important things for today, other than the obvious going over 4,000 foot and bagging our first peak, as it's called. I know I haven't really talked about it much, other than mentioning that New England loves their 4,000 footers. There are 48 of them in New England. And people called peak baggers make it their goal to go out and summit all 48 of them. I'm not doing that, but I think we hit like 10 to 12 on the AT, which is kind of cool. With Katahdin, obviously, being the last one. We are going to be staying, I believe, with the 12 Tribes, which is the quote-unquote cult that runs the Yellow Deli and the hostel in town here. It's not really a cult. It's a bunch of very Christian people who started a commune and have a farm where they all live. And I mean, it sounds culty. I don't know. We'll see. But they have a hostel where you can stay for donations only, and you know, shower, laundry. They provide you with a big free breakfast in the morning. Sounds worth it to me. It's gonna be a hard climb. Woke up to wetter clothes than I went to sleep with, which sucks. Humidity sucks. It rained last night, but all my clothes were definitely undercover. They're just wet. So I'm gonna start by walking them dry, and then I'll start sweating and get them wet again. You know, I'm starting to think I'm not gonna get much of a view from the top of this mountain. Incredible view we have from 4,000 feet. Woo! Nothing, just nothing.
This right here might be the best peanut butter and jelly bread like ever invented. It doesn't even look like it's meant for that. I think you're supposed to just put, you know, toast it and put some butter on it, but it's so good. I don't know. This place seemed pretty nice to me. Got a resupply down. Looks like got some food, and now I'll be chilling for the night. So I figured it's a good time to say see you later, and next video we'll be finishing Vermont, spending the 4th of July in Hanover, and then I think we'll end next week's video just short of the whites, but that's next week's video. Bye, y'all.